provided by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis, based on the most relevant LinkedIn posts about software-defined and AI-defined vehicles in calendar weeks 31 and 32. Frennis supports Tier 1 automotive suppliers with early-stage market validation for their R&D efforts by combining secondary research, direct OEM expert interviews, and facilitated customer meetings. You can find more info in the description.
Welcome to this deep dive. And, if you are navigating the next-gen mobility space right now, you already know the volume of noise out there is just deafening.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So our agenda today is strictly signal. We are breaking down the absolute top trends in software-defined and AI-defined vehicles across LinkedIn, basically cutting through all that utopian marketing fluff to look at the brutal execution realities.
Right, the stuff that's actually happening on the ground.
Exactly. The shifting underlying architectures and, of course, the massive regulatory deadlines that are just staring down the industry right now.
Yeah, because, for a century, the industry basically treated cars like mechanical watches, right? You turn the ignition, fuel combusts, gears mesh. It was this very closed, predictable loop of cause and effect.
Very mechanical, very predictable.
Right. But the transition we're observing in the data right now is the equivalent of demanding that mechanical watch suddenly become, a living, thinking organism.
It's a huge leap.
It is. And just as the industry is finally wrapping its head around the baseline concept of the software-defined vehicle, or SDV, the goalposts have completely moved. The new paradigm dominating the conversation is the AI-defined vehicle,
which honestly represents a fundamental dismantling of the legacy vehicle architecture. And Jin Chang actually laid out this new framework recently at the AutoSoft event, detailing how the industry is moving, way beyond just slapping a computer in a car to run the brakes in the infotainment screen.
Right. It's much deeper than that now.
Yeah, we are seeing this layered approach of agentic AI, physical AI, and sovereign AI being fused directly onto that SDV foundation.
Okay, let me just make sure I'm wrapping my head around how those three actually interact in the stack. So agentic AI, that handles the independent decision-making, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then physical AI grounds those decisions in actual spatial awareness and physics, like gravity, momentum, friction, all that.
Right.
And then sovereign AI ensures the compute happens locally, securely, right on the vehicle's own silicon, rather than relying on some vulnerable cloud connection. Did I get that right?
That is the exact triad, yeah. And the implication extends far beyond just the automotive sector. This architecture is effectively a generalized embodied intelligence platform.
Wow.
The whole goal is this converged ecosystem spanning vehicles, humanoid robots, and eVTOLs, those electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft.
Yeah.
They're all drawing from the exact same architectural blueprint.
That perfectly frames an observation I saw from Stefan Legressel that completely shifts how you view an automaker. He points out that the car is essentially the blueprint for tomorrow's robots.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Because a modern passenger vehicle is already the most complex, highly regulated robot produced at a massive global scale. So the logical conclusion is that whichever semiconductor companies manage to win the automotive space well, they'll inevitably conquer the broader robotics category too.
Yeah, think about it. The compute required to navigate a 2-ton vehicle at 80 miles per hour through a blinding rainstorm is just staggering.
Terrifying, really.
Exactly. And if your silicon can solve for that level of chaos and latency, dropping that exact same chip into a humanoid robot operating in a nice, climate-controlled factory warehouse is, frankly, a trivial downgrade in complexity.
Which explains all the tectonic activity in the silicon market right now. NXP is reportedly targeting the edge AI chip maker Ambarella, specifically to capture that, millisecond localized decision-making capability.
Yep, the land grab is on.
It really is. And meanwhile, BMW has tapped Qualcomm's Snapdragon digital chassis and ride platforms as their lead compute silicon. We saw Cristiano R. Amon and Nakul Duggal highlighting this as the foundational shift for the next decade. It's a total land grab for the brain of the robot.
It really is. But we should probably hit pause here and push back on this a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because the idea of a frictionless, unified silicon brain powering our cars and our robots sounds incredible in a keynote presentation. But Augustin Friedel highlighted a recent interview with Schaeffler's leadership, and they described this current period as a highly stressful double pivot.
A double pivot.
Yeah. I mean, aren't we getting massively ahead of ourselves here? Legacy companies are frantically trying to build these advanced AI-defined organizational capabilities while their basic SDV projects are still in the very early, incredibly painful stages of development.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so that utopian vision absolutely shatters when it hits the factory floor.
I declare.
The dream of generalized AI is colliding with the brutal execution realities of software development within a culture that is, hardware first. Building a mechanical car is an art form these companies mastered over a century.
Right, they know how to bend metal.
Yeah, but building a scalable, secure software platform that just happens to have wheels is proving excruciating for them. They're struggling to ship on time, let alone actually turn a profit doing it.
So where specifically is the mechanism breaking down? I mean, is it the coding itself or is it the architecture?
Well, it's the architecture attempting to do way too much. Fadi Labib gave a very sharp assessment of the AUTOSAR standards that illustrates this perfectly. So AUTOSAR Classic, the older standard, still ships reliably today.
Okay, why is that?
Because it uses a signal-based architecture to solve a bounded, highly specific problem. It does one task, predictably. But AUTOSAR Adaptive, which relies on a service-oriented architecture designed to fulfill this, unbounded generality of the SDV dream, that is heavily stalling.
Because it's trying to anticipate every possible future workload.
Exactly. It sounds like building a massive, sprawling foundation for a skyscraper when you aren't even sure if you're building an office building or a shopping mall yet.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the middleware gets so heavy and bloated with abstractions that the product teams can't actually compile and ship a working feature today.
Wow. Yeah, that unbounded generality requires constant refactoring. I mean, you are basically building middleware for sensors that haven't even been invented yet.
Exactly.
And a financial toll of chasing that dream is printed clearly on their balance sheets. German OEM revenues have seen massive nominal decline since the first half of 2016. BMW is down 59%.
59%?
Yeah. And look at Volkswagen's software unit, Cariad, led by Peter Bosch, who's pushing this triple AI approach. They just reported an 855 million euro operating loss in the first half of the year against just 815 million in revenue.
Wait, operating at a loss just to build the platform itself?
Yes.
And that stems directly from Conway's law, right? Organizations design systems that mirror their own internal communication structure.
Oh, entirely.
So when a legacy automaker with these heavily siloed departments for the chassis, the powertrain, the cabin, when they try to build a unified software stack, they just end up with a tangled, expensive mess trying to bridge their own internal silos.
Yeah, the friction of legacy manufacturing culture clashing with agile software development is literally costing them €1 billion every 6 months. Hardware requires frozen specs years in advance, but software requires constant, fluid iteration.
Which naturally forces a strategic capitulation. Partha Goswami noted that VW is essentially throwing in the towel on the pure in-house software build. The capital burn is just too high.
So what are they doing instead?
They're pivoting to joint ventures, launching Carazon with Horizon Robotics in China and partnering with Rivian in the West. Basically, they're buying the speed they couldn't build.
Right. And speed is ultimately a governance metric, not a coding metric.
Yes, exactly. Mohammed Fakhru shared a data point on this that is just staggering. A single feature request from China waited 8 full months just to get an answer from a German headquarters.
8 months. Just for an answer.
8 months of administrative ping pong. Meanwhile, their Chinese competitors are developing entire vehicles from a blank sheet of paper to full production in 24 to 36 months.
Wow.
You cannot survive if your internal decision loop takes a third of the time it takes your rival to engineer an entire car.
Yeah, you're dead in the water.
Hey, real quick, by the way, to you listening, if you want to stay ahead of how these massive global shifts and execution gaps are playing out, make sure you hit subscribe so you catch our future deep dives. We are tracking this transition very closely.
Definitely. And, there was one more execution hurdle here that the industry is severely underestimating. Mayte Alves Becerra calls it the extend right problem.
Okay, the extend right problem. What's that?
Well, engineering teams are hyper-focused on shift left-right, testing software and simulating environments way earlier in the development cycle.
Sure. Yeah.
But they're largely ignoring the right side of the timeline, managing the compute life cycle of a vehicle that has to remain updatable for 15 to 20 years.
Oh, wow. Think about the physical reality of that for a second. We are talking about automotive-grade silicon baking in extreme temperatures, like a car parked in the Arizona sun, then driven in a freezing winter.
Exactly.
You have NAND flash memory that physically degrades after thousands of read and write cycles. Now imagine trying to push a heavy generative AI operating system update to a 15-year-old degraded chip in the year 2040.
Yeah, it won't work. The hardware will completely bottleneck the software. The continuous integration pipeline kind of assumes an infinite capacity to update, but the physical vehicle is a depreciating static compute environment.
Which makes the safety implications absolutely terrifying. If a 15-year-old processor is going to struggle to just run a simple infotainment update without thermal throttling, how on earth do we validate and trust autonomous driving AI systems operating out in the wild on that same aging hardware?
It is the ultimate high-stakes computing environment, and it is driving a massive philosophical divide in the autonomous vehicle space right now, end-to-end AI versus a hybrid architecture. Gerald F. Lackey shared a McKinsey survey showing that only 22% of experts believe end-to-end AI will ultimately dominate.
Just 22%. I mean, I understand the skepticism there. End-to-end AI, where raw camera data goes in one side of the neural network and steering commands come out the other, is fundamentally a black box. You cannot mathematically prove why it made a specific choice.
Right. And high-stakes environments absolutely demand determinism. This is exactly why the hybrid approach is favored. You use the AI for perception and path prediction, sure, but it is supervised by a deterministic rules-based validation layer.
Okay, so it has boundaries.
Yes. This layer has hard-coded physics constraints. Its only job is to just say no and override the AI.
It's the digital equivalent of a driving instructor with a passenger-side brake pedal.
That's a great analogy.
Like, the AI might suggest veering slightly into the oncoming lane to avoid a pothole, but the deterministic layer checks the radar, sees an oncoming truck, and physically prevents the steering rack from executing that command. It imposes hard limits.
Exactly. But the AI camp is attempting to bridge this deterministic trust gap. Joe Oquist and Shamir Anjum highlighted NVIDIA's newly open-sourced AlphaMyo 2 supermodel.
Okay, what does that do?
It's a 34 billion parameter reasoning model, but its real breakthrough is generating these chain of causation traces.
Chain of causation.
Yeah, it doesn't just issue a braking command, it links its decision to specific vectors in the visual scene. It basically outputs the reason why it yielded.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back hard on this.
Go for it.
In text-based large language models, AI hallucinations are a massive, totally unsolved problem. The models just confidently invent facts. So if this NVIDIA model is generating language to explain its driving behavior, how do we know the AI isn't just hallucinating a highly convincing, post-rationalized excuse for why it just caused an accident?
That is a very fair point, but it's a critical distinction to make here. The chain of causation isn't just a text generator making up a story. The model is designed to ground its language output in the actual geometric and semantic sensor data.
Okay, so it's tied to the physical world.
Right. It highlights the exact bounding box of the pedestrian that triggered the braking threshold. It is attempting to make the black box transparent by basically showing its mathematical work.
I see. But even if the math is completely accurate, Christian Eckert raises a fascinating user experience dilemma here.
Oh yeah, the UX side of this is wild.
Right. If the car can essentially explain its internal reasoning in real time, should the passenger actually see it on the screen? If I'm sitting in the back seat, does a prompt saying, I swerved left because the probability of the cyclist falling was 82%, does that actually build my trust? Or does it absolutely terrify me by revealing exactly how much independent life-or-death judgment this machine is exercising?
Yeah, do you really want to know how the sausage is made when you are riding inside the sausage casing at 70 miles per hour? Total transparency kind of strips away the illusion of safety. We implicitly trust human drivers, even though they are distracted and flawed, mostly because we don't see their internal probability calculations. Seeing a machine calculate the odds of a fatality in real time might induce constant panic.
It definitely would for me. But while we're debating the psychological UX of a robotaxi, Jason Corso brings up a much more sobering reality about scale. Building a brilliant, bespoke autonomous system and testing it on 4,000 highly maintained robotaxis in a geo-fenced city is an engineering marvel, sure.
Absolutely.
But it completely ignores the 207 million legacy human-driven vehicles already on the road today that are actually causing the real-world accidents.
Yeah, the macro safety crisis is caused by the legacy fleet. If autonomous safety software cannot scale down and integrate into the broader chaotic ecosystem of older vehicles, well, it isn't solving the global fatality rate. It is just creating a niche, hyper-expensive luxury service for specific zip codes.
And the moment you attempt to scale that software across millions of connected vehicles globally, you immediately trigger the regulatory immune system. Scaling connectivity isn't just an engineering problem. It makes the vehicle a target for cyber threats, which brings the massive hammer of compliance down on the automakers.
Speaking of which, Dr. Janine Johnson points out a massive bottleneck arriving very soon. The EU Cyber Resilience Act takes effect September 11th.
Oh, well, that's right around the corner.
It demands a 24-hour early warning system for vulnerabilities and a 14-day final report once a fix is available.
A 14-day timeline to deploy a fix to a fleet of millions of cars. That is practically science fiction for legacy automakers. You aren't just pushing a patch to a smartphone app here.
No, not at all.
An over-the-air update requires rigorous hardware-in-the-loop testing. If you patch a vulnerability in the infotainment module, you have to prove it doesn't cause a memory leak that crashes the braking system. That homologation and firmware signing process takes months. Compressing that to 14 days turns basic software maintenance into a constant business continuity crisis.
The compliance overhead alone is going to break smaller suppliers.
Right.
And shifting from the EU to the US, the regulatory focus moves from resilience to outright supply chain decoupling.
Right. Jennifer E. Tisdale shared the developments around the U.S. Connected Vehicle Security Act. And just to be super clear to anyone listening right now, we are strictly imparting the structural and supply chain implications of this legislation as found in the source material without endorsing any political viewpoint whatsoever.
Right. Just looking at the facts.
Exactly. This act, which unanimously passed the Senate Commerce Committee, phases in strict software restrictions starting in 2027 and hardware restrictions in 2030 for connected vehicle technology linked to China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea.
And the mechanics of actually executing that mandate are just staggering.
Yeah.
Untangling a global hardware supply chain in 3 to 6 years means finding and replacing deep-tier microcontrollers, sensors, and communication modules that have been baked into vehicle architectures for a decade.
It's massive.
It formally designates the connected car as a vital national security domain.
And it isn't just federal regulators throwing up roadblocks either. The friction is intensely local. Matthew Raifman highlighted a massive gap in California's AB 1777. The law successfully created an emergency geofence option, allowing police to restrict autonomous vehicles during active crises.
Which makes sense.
It does, but cities still completely lack the legal authority to restrict AVs during planned large events.
Oh, right. And the practical result of that loophole was fully exposed during the 4th of July gridlock in San Francisco.
Oh, the mess.
Waymo vehicles, operating strictly by their programming, struggled to navigate the unpredictable congestion and erratic crowd behavior, and the city couldn't legally mandate them out of the dense areas ahead of time. The local infrastructure and the technology were completely out of sync.
Which brings up a brilliant analogy from Todd Smith about how industries protect themselves. He describes the reaction to autonomous vehicles as an industry's immune system. When a foreign body enters a biological organism, the immune system attacks it under the guise of protection. Yeah, Todd points out that trial lawyers are actively lobbying against autonomous vehicles, citing deep concerns over safety and accountability.
I mean, the argument being, if the software is the driver, who is legally liable in a crash, right? Is it the OEM, the software developer, the hardware provider?
Right. It is a completely valid legal question. But Todd argues the lobbying is actually an immune response protecting a massive revenue stream. They are protecting the $180 billion to $220 billion annual auto liability payout industry.
Wow. $200 billion.
Yeah. If AVs drastically reduce collisions, they drastically reduce litigation. Fewer crashes mean fewer court cases, which means billions in lost fees. The legacy system is actively fighting to protect its own economic survival, cloaked in the language of consumer safety.
That is a stark reminder that deploying disruptive technology is rarely just a battle of engineering. It is a battle against entrenched economic preservation.
Totally. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought to mull over, based on a post by Roberto Diesel. We have spent this whole deep dive unpacking architectural shifts, software execution failures, the AI trust gap, and regulatory immune systems. But what if all of this friction is happening because we are still looking at the vehicle as the final product?
Rather than just a node in a broader network.
Right. What if the car is just one component in a mobility lifecycle? Roberto suggests that the ultimate financial unlock for the software-defined vehicle might not actually happen while the wheels are moving. A personal vehicle sits parked and idle for roughly 95% of its life.
It's just taking up space.
Exactly. Through autonomous fleet integration, you could turn a rapidly depreciating asset into an active revenue source. Your vehicle could autonomously enter a ride-hailing network or deliver packages while you sleep.
It completely inverts the fundamental model of vehicle ownership from a sunk cost to an active yield generator.
The mechanical watch is dead. We are attempting to engineer a living, breathing, continuously evolving ecosystem. And like any rapid evolution, it is messy, it is heavily contested, and it requires entirely new survival skills.
Absolutely.
If you enjoyed this episode, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also check out our other editions on charging and battery tech, commercial fleets, and autonomous and mobility markets.
Thank you for joining us as we work through the realities of this transition today. We really appreciate you taking the time to learn alongside us.
Keep questioning the systems building the future of mobility, and remember to subscribe. We will catch you on the next deep dive.